The perfect getaway, a 10-hour flight to paradise, away from all the stressors in life. Today we're going to be assigning Zenless agents seats in a plane for our paradise getaway. Maybe not all legal legitimate forms, but we're going to find a place for everyone on the plane, one way or another. For this, we're going to have two parts of the plane. We're going to have the economy class and the first class that we divide the agents into. Let's get started. We're starting off with first class, the super fancy class for all the rich agents. Or so you would think. First row, we have Astra at the window seat, and we have Evelyn beside her. Astra being a pop star, of course, she's going to have to be in first class, and Evelyn is there as her bodyguard. I would have believed that Astra and Eve would have flown in her private jet, but Astra is for the people and is woke enough not to emit unnecessary carbon emissions in the air like some celebrities. And then next to them, we have Jane Doe, who is hired as an extra bodyguard for Astra. You know, just in case, since she is going out in public and all. It's just one of the few off jobs she has. Across from them, we have Banyue, who is probably reading a tiny little book with a tiny pair of glasses, or possibly trying to take up a cute little hobby like crocheting to pass the time of the flight. Next to him, we have Dylan, who, oh boy, she is so fun on a plane. Let's be honest here, she's probably talking super duper loudly on her cell phone the entire plane ride. She is so loud that the economy class is able to hear the vibrations of her conversation. Dylan is one of those people who does not listen to the no cell phones rule once the plane is about to take off. And then we have Zhao at the window, who barely hits the mark of being able to sit in her own seat. How did they fix this issue? Well, they bring a handy dandy booster seat! Which Zhao isn't a fan of whatsoever, but at least she gets to look out the window while listening to some K-pop music, so at least she's content. Then, in the second row, we have the Angels of Delusion. How on earth did an angel, a robot, and a random kid manage to get into first class? Well, our favorite Nepo baby, of course. Nangang states that she won the jackpot to the lottery and gets them a limo ride to the plane and sits the three of them right behind Astra. You can just imagine the panicked state Suna is in right now. The only issue is that Arya is sitting between Suna and Nangang, in which of course is trying to get the two of them to stop bickering, because Nangang decided to tease and instigate Suna the entire trip as well. I guess you could say it was a little too good to be true. Across from them, we have Mockingbird. Of course, Hugo and Vivian are sitting next to one another because the siblings come in a pair, with or without their other halves. Whether Hugo actually paid for their tickets, snuck in, or stole them off somebody wealthy and they're going off of aliases is a ridiculous chance that could be, any of these possibilities. Hugo is sitting near the aisle and Vivian is taking the middle seat, and the window seat is empty? Psych! Vivian has the best seat on the plane reserved for the one and only Lord Pathan, of course. But Lord Pathan isn't on the plane right now, so instead she brought her homemade shrine that she never leaves home without. I'm not sure exactly how she got past TSA with the lit candles, but hopefully at least they don't smell or start some sort of fire. While on the other hand, Hugo most likely has a bag of smuggled jewels or antiques that he's planning on pawning off in the overhead baggage, but we're not going to talk about that. Now, behind the Angels of Delusion, we have part of Spook Shack. You might wonder, how did they manage to get into first class? Well, Alice's family, of course. The Time Fields allowed Alice to buy tickets for her and her friends to travel comfortably, but not only after having to deny them, allowing them to also fly in a private jet there. Yuzaha would snag this window seat first and grab her girlfriend along to sit next to her, just to antagonize her the entire time. Monotos decides to sit at the end to not be in the middle of all this, and instead to sleep the entire time with a teddy bear and a sleeping mask, snoring pretty loudly. Which, in turn, doesn't really work out fully for him, because Alice is having to stop Yuzaha from trying to draw into Monoto's face while he's sleeping. Behind the three of them would be the rest of Spook Shack, Yahardi and Lucia, which they're going about their normal day. Yahardi is writing her next hit novel, and Lucia would be researching ethereals at night and sleeping during the day. So nothing too terribly different for them. Across from Spook Shack, we have a mixture of two factions. We have part of Section 6. And we also have Victoria Housekeeping. Victoria Housekeeping's tickets would have been covered by Mayor Mayflower due to them being on duty, as well as Section 6. Miyabi would be at the window seat, cleaning Tierlist, or, practicing the blade, and stacking on Melon. How she got her blade past TSA would be like the most concerning part about this, but we're all just going to assume it's because she's a void hunter. Haramasa is in the middle seat, trying not to get plane sick. Or maybe he is, so he can call off work by the time they land. And Sukaku is next to him in an aisle seat, a mountain of snacks piled around her, mentioning happily from a haul she spent her allowance and the next few future ones in airport gift shops. In turn, for all the snacks Sukaku has, she has a visitor, a sneaky little snake who begins to steal the crumbs that she leaves behind. Sissia is practically sitting in the aisle, trying to take anything she can from the heaven hall Sukaku has. At first, Sukaku is a little bit spooked to see her, but seeing she's a fellow snack enthusiast, she's happy to have Sissia sitting next to her sharing her snacks. And just to keep it straight, Sissia did sneak from economy class to first class because she could smell the snacks that Sukaku had the second she opened them. Nagi is sitting behind Sukaku, watching the three of her coworkers fuck around, making sure they're not going to be causing too much trouble for her. She has a red bead button from taking Sukaku to go get her snacks, one of the last few to be exact, seeming that she bumped into Trigger on the way there. They almost had a feud over red bean buns, but Yanagi was so busy trying to keep control of Sukaku not spending everyone's paycheck that they didn't have time to do so. And then Ellen is sitting at the window seat next to Nagi, not really doing her job. She's sleeping, which isn't a shock. But at the back of the plane, we do have Rina and Lycon standing back there. They don't have seats, but they are doing their job. They're making sure nothing shady is going on. They're actually doing their job, and they're allowing Ellen to take a nap since nothing is going on. And if anything does arise, they'll be able to wake her up pretty easily. And that's all the seats that we have in this class. Or is it? It seems that the Cunning Hares have found themselves in yet another predicament. Why, you say? Because Nicole thought it'd be a great idea for the four of them to crawl into the overhead baggage to get into first class. Yeah. How did they pull this off? Not sure, but all I know is I'm pretty sure I feel like Nicole is going to end up on a no-flight list pretty soon. Not only for sneaking in, but her bag that isn't really a bag. I hope all the expensive airline food is worth all the effort she's putting into this to go on a no-flight list and to have TSA on her ass. What's the deal with airplane food? Well, that's what we'll be asking when we're in the economy class, which is where we're heading. No joke though, why is airplane food the most random amalgamation of stuff? Starting with the first row, we have Yunquay Summit. Now, yes, I believe they possibly would be in first class, but I also believe they would be in economy in case anything went just a little bit awry. Despite Lycon and Reina already watching in between both of the classes, I feel like they would still keep an eye out, as well as keeping their travel costs down. I mean, they kinda already blew most of their budget on renovating Subian Temple and how much Fufu is having to eat. It's shocking that Fufu is sitting with Shifu and Xiaoguang and not living it up with Sukaku and Sissia at the moment. I think it's taking everything in her not to go up there. Across from them, we have Orphe in the aisle, Grace in the middle, and Seed at the window seat. Now, okay, I know, this probably sounds terrible, but let me explain. I couldn't sit Grace with Banyo or Arya, seeing how she's acted in the past with intelligent constructs. Orphe's already bad enough with Magus being the intelligent construct. Grace would have the absolute time talking to both Orphe and Magus, and as well Seed. Seed talking about Seed Sr. when he was still being alive, and how she pilots him now on missions, while Orphe and Magus would talk about their mechanics for being part intelligent construct and part lab-grown human clone. I feel like Grace would have major infatuation with both of them. In second row, we would have Senior Yinhu, Ben, and Kaleda. Ben and Kaleda would sit next to each other because they're inseparable, and also so that Kaleda isn't lonely and, to keep her away from her coworkers that drive her a little crazy at times. I feel like the three of them would be working on their separate things, Senior Yinhu looking for new recipes to make, and Ben and Kaleda working on plans for the worksite. Maybe Ben sneaking her some sweet treats as she sheepishly takes them, seeming that she's still embarrassed that it's, childish to like this sort of thing when it's really not. Across from them, Piper would be sleeping on the window seat, which is just a normal day for her. Anton would be in the aisle seat with an empty seat in the middle. Or is it? No, it's a reserved seat. For who, you may ask? A special lady? Like Pathan? Wrong, wrong, wrong! For his bro, of course!
It's our turn,
Who else
bro.
would be worthy of such a good seat? Come on! Now, in the next row, we have most of the Sons of Caledon, starting with Bernice and Pulchera, and, Seth. Okay, yeah, he's not Sons of Caledon, but, Jane Doe kind of left him on his own to sit in the economy seating. They were supposed to be sitting next to each other, as long with Cecilia sneaking away to go sit with Sakaku, as well as Juyen and Chingy sitting with each other. It kind of left Seth to sit all by himself. So instead, he got stuck at the window seat, sitting next to the most two chaotic people from Blazewood, which would be Bernice and Pulchera. Bernice really wanted to sit by Pulchera, but Pulchera really didn't want to deal with the headache, but didn't really have much of a choice in the end. But in the end, she's secretly happy to be sitting next to her more than other people. And while we're at it, Bernice managed to sneak a nitro fuel onto the plane. She managed to sneak 2 or 3 of them when the attendance cart came around and they offered it. But she snuck in her own stash after they seemingly ran out because she wiped them dry of it. How did she get all this nitro fuel past TSA? Or even her flamethrower? Yeah, I really wonder that too. I also have an inkling feeling that if the plane goes down in flames, we might have a slight idea of who might be the cause of it. So, while Bernice is getting crunk off nitro fuel and causing a ruckus, Lucy is in the aisle across from her, which is making Bernice tease her, and Lucy's trying to get her to stop her antics, which isn't gonna work. But this is the entire trip. Lighter is in the middle. He's just aura farming. He's just so cool that none of this embarrassing stuff is bothering him. He's just so chill. He's just chilling out. And then we have Caesar at the window who's trying to keep her nose out of what Lucy and Bernice are up to, and trying to sneakily read her romance manga behind a false book and listen to her playlist mix of soft romance music to hard rock. Which, you know what? Go you, Caesar. In the back row, we have Trigger, and we have Soldier 11, who are watching out for the rest of the plane. Trigger is enjoying a red bean bun while she can, and Soldier 11 is trying to watch her cat videos, but the two of them are mainly sticking on duty, but also both letting one another quietly enjoy their secret like, while also being on the job. And finally, across from them, we have the rest of PubSec. We have Juyen, and we have Chinyi. Juyen is trying to work while Chinyi is next to her, stopping her, reminding her that this is paid time off and she's not allowed to work. God, I can only imagine if I decided to put Yanagi and Juyen next to each other. Those two workaholics would have not been able to stop themselves from working. And Chingy is just in relax mode, sipping on some hot water, tea, the beverage changing throughout the flight. I feel like we're forgetting something. Wait, well, yeah, that makes sense. She would have gone on the wrong plane, or she would have just forgotten to actually get on the plane. Don't worry, they go back for her, she was a little bit forgetful. And I guess our last question would be, who's manning the plane? Oh, okay, yeah, go figure. Go figure, that would be Fairy and Belle. Yeah, dog, there's no way we're surviving this plane ride. And that's the end. These are the results of our 2 chaotic flight classes. Now, whether we survive this flight before somebody burns down the plane, gets kicked off, or even if the plane just goes down, it would be a little crazy. I want to know your guys' thoughts on what would happen first, and whose fault it may or may not be. Let me know down in the comments. If you want more gacha content, please like and subscribe for more, and check out our other chaotic Tierlist-esc videos we've done. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!